Jai Gurudev and Namaste, and thank you for joining us today. It's a pleasure to have you here to discuss the significance of Annapurna Stotram, particularly from both the perspective of the art of living philosophy and its roots in the Vedic Dharma Sansthan. Jai Gurudev, could you begin by explaining the core essence of the Annapurna Stotram? Jai Gurudev and Namaste, it's a great pleasure to be here. The Annapurna Stotram, composed by the great Adi Shankaracharya, is a beautiful devotional hymn dedicated to goddess Annapurna. Annapurna, the goddess of food and nourishment, is an integral aspect of our spiritual energy in Hinduism. Food or anna is seen as sacred as it sustains not only the body but also supports the mind and soul in their quest for spiritual fulfillment. The Annapurna Stotram's verses highlight the goddess's divine attributes. Each line calls upon the goddess to provide alms and nourishment, not just in the material sense, but also in the spiritual sense, leading us towards knowledge and detachment, which are the keys to liberation or moksha. That's a wonderful explanation. The Stotram seems to emphasize a connection between food, compassion, and spirituality. Can you share how this aligns with the art of living teachings, especially when it comes to detachment and balance in life? Absolutely. In the art of living, we emphasize the importance of balance in all aspects of life, especially between the material and the spiritual. The concept of anna or food is seen not just as physical nourishment, but as an offering of love and grace from the divine. Food nourishes the body, and it is through this body that we can pursue the higher goals of life, including peace, wisdom, and ultimately liberation. The Stotram beautifully captures the essence of this nourishment by linking it with compassion, knowledge, and detachment. When we chant the verses of Annapurna Stotram, we remind ourselves of the need for physical and spiritual nourishment. It is not just about filling the stomach, but about finding deeper fulfillment through spiritual practices like meditation, breathing techniques, and service to others, which are all central to the art of living philosophy. That's insightful. You mentioned the concept of detachment, which seems so crucial in this context. Could you elaborate on how detachment is intertwined with the worship of Annapurna and the message of this hymn? Yes, detachment in the art of living tradition is not about renouncing the world, but rather about renouncing attachment to the fruits of our actions and outcomes. When we view food or material wealth as the ultimate goal, it creates attachment. But when we see food as a gift from the divine, as a means to sustain the body and mind on our spiritual journey, then we can detach from its fleeting nature and focus on what truly matters: knowledge, peace, and liberation. In the Annapurna Stotram, when we pray to Goddess Annapurna for alms, we are acknowledging that she is the provider of all that we need, both materially and spiritually. This is a reminder that food is not our ultimate goal, but a means to fulfill our higher purpose. Detachment comes when we understand that what we receive is her divine blessing, and we are not bound by the need for more or the desire for excess. That's a beautiful perspective on detachment. I also found the verses of the Stotram quite vivid in their descriptions of the goddess's qualities, such as her beauty, her role in protecting the three worlds, and a connection with Lord Shiva. How do you interpret these divine attributes in the context of our modern life? The vivid descriptions of Annapurna's qualities in the Stotram reflect her omnipotent role as the sustainer of the world. She is depicted as a divine mother who not only provides physical sustenance, but also emotional and spiritual protection in today's world, where we are often distracted by the hustle and bustle of daily life. We tend to forget that the source of our well being, our health, our happiness, and our spiritual growth comes from a higher power. In the art of living, we teach that when we recognize this divine presence in every aspect of our lives, including in food and nourishment, we begin to live with greater gratitude, peace, and balance. Just like Annapurna, who is the embodiment of compassion and nourishment, we too must strive to provide nourishment not just to ourselves but also to others through kindness, service, and selfless action. That's such a the goddess's connection with Lord Shiva also teaches us that material wealth, when balanced with spiritual wisdom, can help us grow towards the divine. It's a reminder that we should not treat the material world as a separate from the spiritual journey, but should embrace both, ensuring that our spiritual foundation guides our material pursuits. That's such a harmonious way of looking at the balance between the material and the spiritual. Lastly, the story of goddess Annapurna feeding Lord Shiva and his followers during a famine is quite powerful. What lessons do you think this story imparts, especially in the context of today's world where many face issues of scarcity and hunger? The story of Lord Shiva and his followers begging for food from goddess Annapurna is a powerful lesson in humility, dependence, and gratitude. In a world where scarcity and hunger are real issues for many, the story reminds us that food is not something to take for granted, it is a sacred gift. It is also a reminder that even the divine, in their supreme wisdom, acknowledges the importance of nourishment and the sustenance of life. In the context of the art of living, this story encourages us to develop a sense of humility and gratitude for the food we receive, no matter how small. It also calls us to recognize our interdependence with each other. The goddess feeds not just Lord Shiva but all beings, teaching us that true wealth lies in serving others and in sharing what we have. Moreover, it emphasizes the importance of understanding the deeper significance of food in sustaining life, not just for survival but for spiritual growth. When we offer food with love and gratitude, we are offering our connection to the divine. This is the true meaning of abundance, abundance of spirit, of love, and of giving. Thank you so much for such a deep and thoughtful discussion. It's clear that the Annapurna Stotram offers not just spiritual nourishment, but practical wisdom for living a balanced and meaningful life. Do you have any final thoughts or advice for our listeners as they reflect on the teachings of Annapurna? Yes, Jagrudev, my final advice would be to approach life with a spirit of gratitude and humility. The Annapurna Sutram teaches us that everything, our food, our relationships, our health, are all gifts from the divine. By acknowledging this, we can cultivate a sense of peace and fulfillment that transcends material desires, whether we are meditating, practicing yoga, or simply sharing a meal with loved ones. Let us remember that everything we have is a part of the divine flow of life, and may Goddess Annapurna bless you all with the nourishment of both body and soul, guiding you on your path towards wisdom, peace, and liberation. Jai Annapurna. Jai Gurdev, Jai Annapurna, thank you again for sharing your wisdom with us today. It's been a truly enriching conversation. Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure to discuss the divine teachings of Goddess Annapurna with you. May we all be nourished in every aspect of our lives. Jai Gurdev. Jagadev, as we continue this conversation, one thing that stands out in the Annapurna Stotram is the deep connection between the goddess's divine role and the sustenance she offers. The Stotram also has numerous references to the goddess as a purveyor of knowledge, peace, and spiritual growth. How do these aspects of the goddess relate to the art of living principles, particularly in the context of self realization? Jagadev, that's a very insightful question. In the art of living tradition, self realization is a core pursuit. It's about realizing the divine presence within us and aligning ourselves with the highest potential of peace and love. Goddess Annapurna, through her role as a provider of nourishment, represents this deeper form of sustenance. She nourishes not just the body but the mind and spirit, which are essential for one's journey of self realization. When we chant the Annapurna Stotram, we are invoking not just her divine provision of food, but also her role as a bestower of wisdom. She is depicted as the destroyer of all sins and the purifier of both the body and mind. This aligns beautifully with the Art of Living's teachings on purification through practices like meditation, breathing techniques, and selfless service. These tools are a way to purify ourselves, cleanse our minds, and create a deeper connection with the divine. Annapurna's qualities, her beauty, grace, and the nourishment she offers are not just external. She embodies the idea that true nourishment is about fulfilling the deepest aspects of ourselves, including our intellectual and spiritual needs, just as the food nurtures the body, wisdom, and compassion, and self awareness nurtures the soul, and this is what leads to the ultimate self realization. I find it interesting how the concept of food in Annapurna's devotion extends beyond physical needs to embody emotional and spiritual fulfillment. In modern society, many people experience a disconnect between these layers of nourishment. How do you think we can bridge this gap between the material and spiritual, especially in today's fast paced world? Yes, the disconnect between the material and the spiritual is one of the greatest challenges of our modern age. We live in a world that often emphasizes material success and instant gratification, while the deeper aspects of spiritual fulfillment often take a back seat. The gap between the two can be bridged by consciously integrating the sacredness of food and nourishment into our daily lives. In the art of living, we teach mindfulness and presence in every action, and this extends to something as simple as eating. When we approach food as not just fuel for the body but as a divine gift, we begin to shift our perspective. Before we eat, we can take a moment to express gratitude for the food, the hands that prepared it, and the energy that went into creating it. This simple act brings our awareness to the interconnectedness of life and reminds us that food is not just sustenance for the body, but also a tool for spiritual practice. Further, the practice of seva or selfless service is central to bridging this divide. When we engage in acts of kindness, whether it's preparing food for others or offering our time and energy, we begin to align the material act of nourishing with the spiritual principle of selflessness. This deepens our connection to others and to the divine. That's a very powerful way to look at it. The idea of food not only nourishing the body but also creating spiritual awareness and presence. Another aspect of the Annapurna Stotram that strikes me is the emphasis on the goddess's connection to Lord Shiva, her relationship with the cosmic order. How does the divine feminine represented by Annapurna complement the masculine energy of Lord Shiva in the world around us? The relationship between goddess Annapurna and Lord Shiva is symbolic of the balance of the feminine and the masculine energies in the universe. Lord Shiva represents the formless, transcendent, and meditative aspects of reality. He is a pure consciousness, detached from the material world. In contrast, goddess Annapurna, as a divine mother, represents the nurturing, sustaining force. She is the energy that gives life and form to the material world. In the art of living, we recognize that these two energies are inseparable and complementary. The feminine energy is the nourishing, creative force that brings life, abundance, and harmony, while the masculine energy provides structure, discipline, and the potential for transcendence. Together, they create a complete whole, a perfect balance that is essential for spiritual growth and for the world to function harmoniously. This balance is reflected in the divine couple's teachings. While Lord Shiva remains detached, observing the world in silence, it is Annapurna who is actively involved in sustaining life. Through her, we learn that spiritual evolution is not only about renouncing the world, material world, but also about fully participating in it with compassion and wisdom. We see that there is no need to withdraw from life to attain liberation. Through engaging with life, serving others, and offering gratitude, we can find the balance needed to progress spiritually. The divine feminine, as embodied by Annapurna, offers the nourishment that the world needs to function. Without her, the material world would lack the energy to thrive. Similarly, the masculine energy of Shiva guides the soul toward the higher realms of consciousness. Together, they teach us how to live a life of purpose and harmony, balancing our inner peace with the outer action. This balance between Shiva and Annapurna, the masculine and feminine, is truly profound. As we close, could you offer some practical advice to our listeners on how they can bring the essence of Annapurna into their daily lives, especially in terms of nourishment, compassion, and spiritual growth? Absolutely. To bring the essence of Annapurna into our daily life, begin by cultivating gratitude, whether it's for food, relationships, or the opportunities you have to grow. Before each meal, take a moment to express gratitude for the nourishment it provides and for the effort that went into bringing it to you. This small act can transform your relationship with food and help you connect to the sacredness of life. Compassion is another key aspect of Annapurna's energy. Look for opportunities to serve others, whether it's through giving food, offering help, or simply listening with an open heart. Service is a direct expression of the divine feminine energy, and it will bring a sense of fulfillment that material possessions never can. Spirituality incorporate practices such as meditation and mindfulness into your day. These will help you stay connected to your higher self and to the divine presence within you. By doing so, you align yourself with the nourishing energy of Annapurna and you begin to experience true abundance not just in material terms but in peace, wisdom, and love. Lastly, remember that true nourishment comes from within. As you feed the body, you also feed the mind and the soul with the positive thoughts, spiritual teachings, and acts of kindness. Just as Annapurna provides the sustenance for life, you too can be a source of nourishment for those around you, helping to create a world of balance, peace, and spiritual growth. That's beautifully said. Thank you once again for sharing your insights with us today. It's been an incredibly enlightening conversation. Thank you for the opportunity to discuss the divine wisdom of Annapurna. May her blessings guide you on your path of nourishment, peace, and self realization, Jagardev. Jagardev, the concept of nourishment as both physical and spiritual sustenance is so deeply rooted in Annapurna's symbolism. We have touched on the idea of gratitude and mindfulness in daily life. But what about the role of community and spiritual nourishment? In the Annapurna Stotram, there is a sense of collective well being, especially when we consider the importance of alms and serving others. How does community service tie into the art of living philosophy, and how can individuals contribute to the collective spiritual nourishment for those around them? That's an excellent question. In the art of living, we emphasize the importance of community and collective well being. While individual spiritual growth is essential, we cannot overlook the role of community in nurturing each other. This is especially true when we reflect on the role of Annapurna in the Annapurna Stotram, where she is depicted as offering alms and nourishment to all beings, not just individuals but the collective society. Her grace extends to all, and in doing so, she sets an example of inclusive care and compassion. Community service or seva is at the heart of the art of living philosophy. It is through selfless service that we are able to transcend our individual concerns and connect with the larger collective consciousness. By serving others, we nourish them in the same way that Annapurna nourishes the world through acts of kindness, compassion, and unconditional love. This is how we align with the universal force of love and abundance, creating a ripple effect of well being for everyone involved. On a practical level, it could be as simple as offering help to someone in need, whether it's preparing food for the underprivileged, volunteering in your community, or even offering a kind word to a friend who is going through a tough time. By contributing to the spiritual nourishment of others, you not only uplift them but also cultivate your own sense of inner peace and joy. Additionally, the very act of coming together as a community to pray, meditate, or engage in spiritual discussions creates a collective field of positive energy. This collective vibration elevates everyone's consciousness, much like the way Annapurna, through her divine nature, elevates the consciousness of all those she nourishes. As we create this environment of peace, love, and shared growth, we contribute to the collective spiritual nourishment of society. This idea of contributing to collective spiritual nourishment is very powerful, especially in today's world where isolation can sometimes overshadow connection. Moving to another aspect of the Sutram, it's mentioned that Annapurna is the goddess who sustains the entire universe and has the power to purify all sins. In your experience, how does this idea of purification tie into the practices of the art of living, particularly in terms of inner transformation and self awareness? Purification is a central theme in both the Annapurna Stotram and in the teachings of the art of living. Just as Annapurna is described as a purifying force who cleanses all sins and impurities, our practice of inner transformation in the art of living is all about purifying the mind, body, and spirit. We understand that the essence of spirituality is not about mere belief or actional rituals, it's about inner purification and awakening to our highest potential. In the art of living, we teach practices like Sudarshan Kriya, meditation, and pranayama or breathing exercises as tools for purifying the mind and body. These practices help to release accumulated stress, negative emotions, and old thought patterns that no longer serve us. Just as Annapurna's nourishment sustains the body, these practices nourish the mind and soul, creating clarity and peace. Moreover, purification doesn't just mean getting rid of negative traits, it also involves cultivating positive qualities like compassion, patience, and wisdom. In the context of Annapurna, her role as a divine mother not only removes impurities but also nurtures us, allowing us to grow spiritually. When we embark on a path of purification, we aren't just removing obstacles, we are making space for the divine presence within us to shine. In the process of self awareness, we also become more attuned to our connection with the universal and all living beings. This awareness allows us to act with more love, kindness, and understanding, which in turn supports the collective purification of society. It's a beautiful cycle. By purifying ourselves, we contribute to the purification of the world around us. The connection between purification and self awareness seems integral to both the Stotram and the Art of Living's teachings. One thing that stood out to me is the role of Annapurna as a dispenser of knowledge and detachment in the final verses of the Stotram. How does the practice of detachment align with the art of living philosophy, and how can detachment lead to true freedom? Jagadevi's detachment is often misunderstood as renunciation or withdrawing from the world, but in the art of living, detachment is about freedom from the grip of desires, attachments, and external circumstances. It's not about rejecting life, but about embracing it with a sense of inner peace and detachment from the outcomes. The true essence of detachment, as taught by Lord Shiva and Goddess Annapurna, is to remain deeply connected with life while not being swayed by its fleeting nature. In the context of Annapurna, she represents the nourishment we receive from the world, but also the wisdom to recognize that everything is transient. This understanding helps us not to get too attached to any material possession, relationship, or outcome. Detachment then becomes a pathway to freedom. Freedom from the mind's endless cycle of desires and attachments. The art of living encourages us to cultivate this kind of detachment through mindfulness and spiritual practices. When we meditate or practice breathing techniques, we create space between ourselves and the constant fluctuations of the mind. This space allows us to see life more clearly without getting caught up in our ego, fears, or desires. As we practice detachment, we gain freedom from the hold of these temporary emotions and attachments, and we start living more in alignment with our true nature, peaceful content, and free. Detachment also leads to freedom in our relationships. It doesn't mean we stop caring for others, but rather we learn to love without expectation, to give without attachment, and to accept others as they are. This freedom allows us to be present in the moment and to appreciate life as it is rather than constantly chasing after what we think will bring us happiness. This freedom that comes from detachment seems to be a key to spiritual evolution. As we conclude, could you share a final reflection on how we can embody the qualities of Annapurna, nourishment, compassion, wisdom, and detachment in our daily lives, especially in the context of the modern world? To embody the qualities of Annapurna in our daily lives, we must cultivate balance, mindfulness, and compassion. First, we can begin with nourishment, not just physical nourishment, but also emotional and spiritual. Take time to care for yourself and for others, whether through nourishing meals, supportive relationships, or spiritual practices. This is a reminder that we are all interconnected, and as we nourish ourselves, we also nourish the world around us. Compassion is another key quality in today's fast paced world. It's easy to become absorbed in our own lives and struggles, but by practicing compassion and open ourselves to the suffering and needs of others, recognizing that their struggles are our own, simple acts of kindness, whether offering food, a smile, or a listening ear, can create ripples of positivity and love. Wisdom is also vital. Annapurna embodies the wisdom that comes from understanding the impermanence of life. We can embrace this wisdom by practicing detachment not as a rejection of life but as a freedom from the attachments that limit us. When we live with wisdom, we understand that happiness is not dependent on external circumstances but on our inner peace and connection to the divine. Lastly, detachment is not about withdrawing from life, but about fully engaging with it without being enslaved by desires and fears. When we practice detachment, we experience true freedom, which allows us to serve others and live with a sense of purpose and clarity. By living with these qualities, we can bring the essence of Annapurna into our lives, offering nourishment to the world, embodying compassion, living with wisdom, and experiencing true freedom. May we all be inspired by Annapurna to live a life of balance, love, and spiritual growth. Thank you so much for your wisdom and insights today. It's been an incredibly enriching conversation, and I'm sure our listeners will leave with a deeper understanding of how to embody to the divine qualities of Annapurna into their own lives. Thank you for having me. It's been a joy to share these teachings. May Annapurna's blessings guide us all on our path to nourishment, peace, and spiritual evolution. Jai Gurudev.